huge, guys. Yes, this is a really huge model. Hi guys, and welcome back to one of my videos. Paolo here, GT40 Model Works. And by the way, check it out, my website. I updated the website. It's a little much more oriented to the English speaking people, than more than to Italian. So what do we have here? This is a kind of bodybuilder truck, It was one of the big guys from back in time. You know that I love race cars and trucks and tractors, and everything that is huge. I like them, And this is something very special because it became a subject that I see that all around the world is appreciated. For me, quite easy to build up, and I wanted to make a video about the explanation on how I build up this guy, You probably already seen, because there have been different timing in the upload of my videos. Probably you already seen the videos about the Officina Meccanica 180, that was a similar truck like this with a different double steering wheel in the front axles and just one motion wheel axis, Is that this version is named the Fiat 697. It was a truck produced by Fiat until the 70s, I think 72, 73, something like that. You check in Wikipedia about the production data and the production numbers, And this was the heavyweight guy, of this area. And it's huge. It's a huge model. I hope that you can see clearly in the video, the dimension that he has. It became very big guy. It's as I said, is a kind of bodybuilder truck. Why? Because this was the ultra powerful one, the super heavy series produced by Fiat, in the early 70s. And despite many guys say no, in some Italian forums I had kind of arguments with people that know everything about this stuff. But after my research, I discovered that the Fiat Group didn't have the possibility back in time to develop their own transmission parts and so on. So what happens? Still coming from the Marshall Plan that helped Italy after the Second World War, there was a lot of American parts and, copyrights arriving to Italy for massive production that usually people didn't think about that, but the help of USA in this kind of production was critical, because without them it was absolutely hard for the local companies exiting a war like Italy was in the 50s and in the 60s to develop your own heavy stuff for workings. So what happened here? It happened that an American company that was the Hendrickson from USA was making the transmissions and the bridges. They called them the bridges. It's the real axles, and it was the same axles used by Peterbilt, as well as some series of Kenworth and American trucks used them, as well as the gear shifter, not present in this truck because he had already still a quite conventional gear shifter, but we had the Eaton Fuller, the mythical Fuller by truck drivers. It is a mythical gear shifter, for the track that is an American copyright too. And inside all the project that was made for this heavy series, Fiat was able to produce this truck in the 70s that was the big loader, the powerful guy. It was the Fiat 697, and it was the main actor of a very nice documentary that you can find online that was is named as Rotta Karachi. Karachi in Pakistan is a big city in Pakistan, and it's about the nice documentary adventure of some Dutch truck drivers starting from Amsterdam and arriving in Karachi, Pakistan, loading a big container of I think they guess it was television, something like that, and it's a very nice driving adventure when you see this truck starting from Europe, having a special route, crossing the Iran, crossing all that area, I think slightly before the terrific war they had between Iran and Iraq in the 70s and in the 80s, and it is absolutely a must to see, it's a short documentary. I think it lasts for 30 to something more than 30 minutes, and it's dubbed in Italian with the typical voice of the 70s. It's very nice to see, and you see images of these fellows going around the desert and so on, so it became sort of Paris-Dakar race, for them, and they were just working, it's an ordinary line that I think still today it's a thief despite there is a war area, so they had to change the route to make it safer for the driver. There is big issues down there, so big problem, you know, guys. So you cannot imagine an adventure like the one they did in the 70s and in that way. The nice part was that the building of this model was not so hard, honestly, because when you get the proper dimensions, and they found it about the 67, the 97, sorry, not the 697. I say 97 because usually all these tracks have the name starting with the 6, so it's 682, 619, 694, 684, 693, and this is a 697, you know. And after this series, they switched, after 691, they switched to 180 and so on, and then they started with the 1 number. So it was an internal numbers from Fiat. They all look the same, they are all different, so you have to check the details of the series to understand what track are we talking about, you know. 97 was, of course, starting from the typical H cabin. H cabin was because the front end of this part of the cab reminds in some way the letter H, you know, two side and the crossbar in the middle. And it was one of the first cabin they did with this kind of bumper, that it was quite easy to convert from the ordinary, I think also here it was a Magirus Deutz truck or a Fiat Cowboy, you know, the ordinary Fiat 190 provided by Italeri, the one that anyway have the round wheel arch over the front suspension, you know, not the Turbo Star that is a square and arriving different here, but you know better than me what I'm talking about, you know. So you have to choose that box, at least for the cab. And for the cab you will have the 3 sides of the cab, 1, 2 and 3, and you have to provide a different roof from the cab as well as different drop line. As usual, as I said in the previous video about the 180, you have to work quite well in the area of the windshield, because the upper windshield have a corner and the guarnition in rubber in the real truck, as well as the 3 wipers became in a different position, so there is a lot of small detail that you have to check around, you know. The front grille here is provided by Max Model. He make a nice 3D printed, I think is in a soft vinyl resin, and it's anyway well done. I just retake the color because he wanted in a bright silver for the edges and so on. And you can see picture of this truck inside his website, maxmodel.it. Max, I think is Max dot models. I don't remember on this, but you know what I'm talking about. You know, it's the company making details for trucks in 87 and in 24. And then I wanted to make the double transmission that these trucks used to have. This was a 6x4, so 6 wheels, 6 point of wheels, and 4 of them, 1, 2, 3, 4 was the motion part, you know. And I took the main differential parts coming from a Peterbilt, because as I say, the transmission made by Hendrickson was absolutely identical to the first early series of the Peterbilt. What was different was, of course, the suspension. The suspension itself was not the air suspension the Peterbilt had during the following years, so you just take the 2 main differential points, you know, during the scratch build. This also had a different connection point with the trailer, you know. You can check it in the picture. That was slightly different from the ordinary one. It was a little higher up. Probably this take an optimal point of joining with the trailer. I don't know technically why. And it was not so hard to build up this part. Of course, you have to increase the length of the chassis, because it becomes much more longer than an ordinary 4x2 trucks. When it became 6x4, they became huge, they became much bigger, and there is a lot of mechanical part that you can see really working here, and with a lot of details. Then of course I added some of special effort, like the leaves, like cables and so on, like the air pressure. One is for the air, the other is for the light, to connect the trailer, you know. I currently have in production, in my production, the building up of the trailer for this truck, because I would like to make it exactly like the real truck. They will become huge models at the end. We are talking of something that is over 70 centimeters when they are done. And when I build up the main parts, you know, I knew that I wanted to use, just checking the pictures, you know. You have to be careful about this series, because they have trucks with different wheelbases. So this kind of truck, the 97, For me, I had the problem that when I arrived to think about the finishing of the truck, I didn't start with the idea to make this Dutch model, you know, of the Reinhardt Truck Corporation from Holland. You know, I didn't want in the beginning to build it up this way, but then I went here because I just checked around, and these kind of vehicles in Italy, they were not used like ordinary lorries for commercial transport. You know, they were just tippers or stuff working in building places and so on, or tipper, you know, so they were just with the big trailer on the back, but just like the ordinary big truck working in with caterpillars and so on. You know, I don't remember the specific American name of such trucks, but you understand what I mean, you know. And then checking around, I discovered that the only country that was using them so actively, like real trucks, it was just Holland. And I crossed this documentary in YouTube about this. It's created by Centro Storico Fiat, so it's absolutely reliable and it's absolutely well done. It's a production of the early 70s, and it's lovely to see how they made it, because it's really, really, really a spot from the time, you know. So you see the colors and everything is coming from the era. And what I loved mostly in the Reinhardt truck version, it was that all the truck in this period had. I also get in touch with the owner that is still active in the company. It is Reinus Reinhardt, you know, that is the owner of this company nowadays, that he simply loved my truck so much, and he was so happy to see this production. It was a Dutch truck. Dutch have a giant community of incredibly skilled modelers making this kind of truck. So it was just in case for me to end in one of their trucks, you know, because I didn't want to finish in the conventional light green or pale blue that Italian version has. This was absolutely cool in my opinion, because they took back in time exactly the color of the Dutch flag. So you have the white, you have the light blue, more than light blue, and the red. You know, it's not the ordinary red that you can find in the chassis. It's different tones of red. This was a real red, you know, coming from the Dutch flag. And it was absolutely a must. And when I started to show around this model, it became absolutely a stunner. You know, people loved it so much. I used that in Sweden for competition. I used that in Italy. I used that in all the countries that I crossed. I used this model, and it always took the best in class or the gold prize and so on, because people really loved to see this kind of vehicle, you know, and with the little, you know, weathering effects. They are never looking, neither when they were new, they were looking so perfect, like a car just coming from the car dealer and so on. So it was absolutely something lovely. Also here, you cannot see so much, I think, from the video, but there is another video that I made, I think, more or less more than 1 year, or nearly 2 years ago now, about the real build-up of the truck, when you really see the passage step by step of what they did to them. And you see that also inside the cab there is a lot of little details, like the curtains, like the bed, like some stuff for the drivers, like papers, like maps. They didn't have GPS, they didn't have anything comfortable for the trip, so it was really an adventure, you know, for these guys traveling from Holland and going so far away to bring what? To bring television, can you understand? To bring television to Karachi. Well, they did, you know, and that's it. In this model I also used it once again, because I love the appeal so much, the big wheel that I made in resin with the typical reduction that these trucks have. So this, if you check the other production that I made, it's not the standard final central hub of the wheel, so this is a little different. I also made this in resin to make tippers and so on. It was typical. I think it was a kind of reinforcement that they placed over the wheel hub on such big heavyweight fellows, you know. And minor modification, but also, of course, you have to open these windows that are not present in the original truck. But I mean, if you check closely the version that you want to build up about these Fiat trucks, you can see all the difference that they had time by time, you know. So the air filter in this truck was here external, despite in the 180 that I showed you, the blue truck, the filter was inside here, because Fiat made a little modification. There was the second driving axle here, steering axle, sorry, here, so they were a little different, but the part was more or less always the same, you know. And that's it. This is one of the nicest model that I have in my collection, really, and it's huge, it's a truck, so you have to like the subject of this kind of models, you know. But I think some special trucks and in this nice library and so on, they really deserve a kit, and I'm so happy that the international community of truck builders liked it so much, and it's really a nice model, you know, it's a nice subject, and I want to finish it in the proper way, preparing now, as I say, the trailer, and so I hope to show you quite soon finish it in the proper way, and the trailer will be in the same way of this, so quite weather ready, you know, it's a container, so container I think I can express at my best about weathering effects and making really used stuff. So that's it, guys. This was a big fellas. I hope you like it, and I hope you like the video, and I'll see you in the next one.